Mr. Ajoy Chawla ji, Mr. Sunil Nayak, Mr. Deepu Mehta, and Mr. Vinod Hayagrav ji. Well, once again, to moderate the session, we have with us Ms. Shoma Bhatta, the editor of Retail Jeweler India magazine. And thank you to all our panelists for being here with us. Ms. Shoma. Feels great to have all of them here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a real long day, but this is truly the most important topic that we're going to discuss on, that is agile leadership. The strategic shift in business for managing risks, survival, and success, which is a little uncertain in the times of today, the future of jewelry business, and of course, let's have some great insights from our distinguished panelists. Thank you very much, dear sirs, for being here with us. And हमारा ये last session है, but जो हमारा ramp walk होगा, Miss Shoma, we waiting for you, ma'am. Sirs, वो आप चारों के ramp walk से होगा. I'm going to request you all. मैं अभी से ही कह रही हूँ, sir, tension मत लेना, but you will all walk the ramp after your session. Till the top of the ramp, sir, till the head of the ramp, all right? And then we'll begin our bridal trendsetter session. Miss Shoma.
In every possible way. Okay, so good evening, everybody, once again. It's 10 to 7. We should have started the fashion show by now, but we are starting the headline panel. And the room is almost full. I'm hoping it will get more full as people trickle in. So that's a good sign. We are all hungry to know more. And on that note, we have 4 distinguished thought leaders from the industry. They need no introduction. If you think they do, then maybe you're in the wrong room. So between the 4 of them, I'm sorry, I'm gasping for breath because I kind of ran. And between the 4 of them, they represent over 500 stores across 200 cities. They bring the market intelligence from all these stores, these cities, and more importantly, they get us deep insights into the minds of millions of women customers. And I think put together, they bring in a whole lot of wisdom and experience, which I think can be put to good use. And looking at the times that we are in highly uncertain times. There is no telling when and how the third wave will hit us. But I promise you that in the next half an hour or 45 minutes, whatever time we are granted, you will have definite and a substantial level of certainty about how the future of the industry is going to pan out. And I say that with a lot of confidence because all of these gentlemen will share their wisdom very generously with us. Yeah? So on that note, starting with you, Ajoy, COVID has played havoc on businesses. And there are many shifts that we are seeing in the way consumers are behaving, both in terms of their shopping behavior, the consumption behavior. But many of these could be fleeting trends. Many could be more enduring. What, according to you, are the trends that we really need to watch out for? Some trends which you are imbibing in your plans for the future?
Thanks, Soma. Thanks for having me here, and pleasure to be here. Good evening to all of you in the audience, and look forward to interacting with you later. I think to say that there was a huge disruption is an understatement. I think every industry has been through, for a change, both demand and supply disruption. I think both of them coming at the same time created a lot of stress, financial as well as what I would say is human stress. I think everybody was anxious what's going to happen. So thankfully for the jewelry industry, the fact that it is precious, the fact that there is an asset value to jewelry, the fact that people were not able to spend on other discretionary spends like travel or hospitality and eating out, etc. We were discussing down that a lot of share of wallet has come our way. And also the fact that jewelry is connected with rituals, which is wedding or festive. So there is a certain solidity to the category. It goes deep. It is not just a discretionary luxury spend as many people were talking about. So I think that has got reaffirmed, and I think that is here to stay. I think everybody will remember that even when everything was down, the jewelry, the customer for jewelry was very much around, and I think that's something big. But on the more other trends that we have seen, certainly I think everybody has seen it here. Digital and remote shopping has become a way of life. First of all, we didn't realize that safety itself can be a huge source of competitive advantage as a differentiator. We did it because that's what was the right thing to do, but eventually customers came back saying, we really feel safe in your stores. I think safety, trust, reliability, all of it kind of got rolled into one. So people's desire for brands which are trustworthy and have been there and have stood the test of time and are going to be there for decades later has got strongly reinforced, especially in a market like India where jewelry is seen as an asset class. The second piece is this whole bit about digital. I think digital has been a revelation. We were working on the whole digital piece for the last 3 years, I think, in terms of investment of all kinds of technologies, all kinds of tools, all kinds of newer methods to woo the customer. We were all talking omni, but we were not behaving omni. So what we see is that today that customer, even let's say the typical buyer who comes to a physical store, has adopted digital quite well. And they are very comfortable interacting with us either on WhatsApp or on video calls, either from the store or central, wherever it is. Connecting with Endless Aisle, where they can see inventory from across the country. I think those trends have stood out. In fact, from virtually nothing to in the last, even in the last quarter that we are seeing, and even in July, August that we have seen, there is at least a 13 to 14% contribution from this new age method of retail. So which is online, omni, remote like video calling and Endless Aisle, and maybe even try at home. So I think that's a big trend. The third big trend that maybe I don't know if it's a trend or it's going to be, with the rising price of gold, we see there is clearly an opportunity for the customer to, or not opportunity, I would say for us it's an opportunity, for the customer it's a requirement to go for lighter weight product. They're looking for something which is more adornment, they can carry it off. The weight of the product has to come down because gold has really jumped up, or even though it might have corrected recently, it has still really jumped up. And I think at least from the customer whom we address in the middle, upper middle, maybe not the very, very luxury end, the customer is seeking for more wearable jewelry, and the customer is seeking something which is lighter, more practical, yet it has an investment value. So that's the third piece. And the fourth area that, and I don't know how far that's sustainable, but as long as the price of gold keeps going up, I think that pressure will remain. Initially we thought there will be a big impact on studded jewelry, but we see that there is a lot of celebration of milestones when it comes to studded jewelry, birthdays, anniversaries, and we are seeing a big jump in the contribution of those milestones in the purchase of jewelry. Sure, people have been buying jewelry for birthdays and anniversaries forever, but the sudden jump that we saw, I don't know how far it's sustainable because it's also a share of wallet thing. Because people didn't have something else to spend on, so we saw them spending on this. So these are some of the, it could be pent up, but it's been now 15 months. So the contribution has gone up. So maybe it is related to COVID.
Sustainable, yeah.
I don't know how far it's sustainable once travel restrictions open up, once hospitality gets back in a big way. So that's something which, we'll see. I'm sure others might have some better insights on that.
Okay. Sunil, given the scale of operations, Are there any innovative strategies around how you're planning to manage risk around the product side of the story?
Yeah. So, first of all, I'm very happy to be here. Good to see all of you. A very good evening to all of you. Yes, I think we strongly believe at Reliance that at the end of the day, you need to have a very strong offering to the customers. Only that will give you longevity. I think, and from the product perspective, if you are asking, I think we have been working quite a lot since the last couple of years. To just give you few examples and our understanding of the markets. The common belief is that the second tier, third tier cities, they are more into the pure gold. They want to buy 22 carat, 18 carat gold. They want to buy. They may not be very fancy about the diamonds. Our research and our experience tells something else. And that is what we have been working on. As you may know, we have come from the back. That is, our expansion started from the interior, the second tier, third tier. So it is not that we are not present in the metros. Our experience is something different. And we have been working and we have been to a large extent successful in creating the collection more on a 14 carat and 18, more than the 18 and 22 carat, more on 14 carat. And if I just throw the numbers, we have the 14 carat contributing more than 20% today. I think the second thing which we have understood and we are working on is that it is no more that only the festive or the wedding related shopping happening across India. This is also true even the second tier and third tier towns. There also we have seen, and that is what we have adopted across our business, that we have adopted a theme called Be the Moment. Means we give the opportunities to the customer to come and shop with us. And that is where we have been launching at a regular interval, at least one or two collections a month, which are mainly into the small pocket size, as I call it, which gives the opportunity to the customers to come and shop. And as Vijay has rightly said, that yes, at the end of the day, everybody wants to invest in the gold, but concentration, particularly the younger generation, is more towards the adornment. So these are the couple of things which we are working on from the product side. Yeah.
All right.
If I may add to that piece, the last portion, I think younger people showing interest in gold is an interesting phenomena that we have also felt.
Absolutely.
Maybe for adornment, but whatever it is, I think gold is back in vogue.
So yeah, if you look at the data points, it says that over 70% Indians who were surveyed, this is Bain and Company, talked about high level of anxiety about their future finances. And I think part of what you are seeing could be stemming from that sense of insecurity, which is all pervading now, and gold seems like a little bit of indulgence and also a way to safeguard the future. So who knows? It could be a bit of both.
One more thing which I would like to add, which I just slipped my mind, is that we very much feel that silver as a category will increase its own contribution, because this is the category or this is the metal which the younger generation would like to wear it on a day-to-day basis. This is the metal which the customers, to enter into the precious jewelry category, they will start with this metal. This is the metal which even the third tier and fourth tier city town dwellers would like to shop it, and that is what you see in our SIS stores.
So when you talk about this, are you hinting towards the demographics or are you hinting towards the economic strata that people who are
I'm referring to both.
All right.
That can be a good entry strategy for you to enter into the silver.
Right. Talking about people who probably cannot afford precious metal, during COVID we have seen that close to 6.6 million white-collar jobs were lost, and that number is growing as we speak. And if you look at SSCC D, which is income level of anywhere between 3 to 33 lakh per annum, that is the core market for most of the large chains, if I understand correctly. Yeah. How are you factoring this demand loss into your plans, and what is happening around that space? Because that's a reality as well. Bipu, maybe you can take that, because you're doing a lot around EMI services and making it more accessible.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for, and pleasure to be here. So let me just tell you about what we have done in Aura since COVID. We've realized that, we need to democratize diamonds. And I've taken what we've learned in the US, and a lot of the growth in the past 20, 30 years in the US has come through EMI and, selling on credit. So we've decided that, there's the demand for diamonds is still there. Sometimes it's not affordable. However, if we are able to give the consumer more ways of buying and innovative ways of buying, 0% interest, credit 12 months, that this would increase the demand. That's what we've seen in the short term, and also drive desirability for diamonds even more. So this is one strategy that we've adopted in the COVID times, is to allow customers to pay. We've tied up with NBFCs and all of that. So allow them to pay for their diamond jewelry over 12 months, or to up to 24 months even.
So can you talk about the outcomes of this service? You're literally funding, the customers. So how is it working in terms of results?
So in terms of results, you see about 2x to 3x. If you were averagely selling about 40,000, that your ticket size would go up to about 1 lakh rupees. So about 2.5 times.
What about new customer acquisition?
You get a lot of new customers, 40% new customer base that is coming up with EMI.
So over the last 18 months, you're saying that you have acquired maybe 40% of the customers that you have today are new customers?
Are new customers.
Basis this EMI facility.
Yeah, that's one of the strategies, of course.
Interesting. Mr. Vinod, coming to you, on the other end of the spectrum, we're talking middle class, we're talking about making diamonds more easy to buy. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have luxury consumption, How is that panning out during COVID?
All right. I'm seeing a variety of ways in which things are moving today. And there is no one way it is moving, because if you take a bird's eye view of things, there's an enormous amount of change happening. When I say, I don't want to be a cliche, just a terminology that says change is happening. We all know change. But the kind of things that are happening is very interesting if one were to keep the ear to the ground, be connected to the consumer world, and in every area. So it's getting very beautifully challenging. It's not stressful, but it is beautiful. For example, there's a huge scope for just anybody in the industry to do things. So there could be somebody who's coming into the industry all afresh and carving a niche for themselves. So it could be just anybody. Put in 20 crores and you can build a lovely business. Put in 5 crores, 20 crores, 40 crores, whatever. But you can really build a business very quickly in this country. And I think that's a great sign. But on the other hand, you can bring in 500 crores and still build a company. So at the end of the day, I think I'm looking at one thing. As much as, we are talking about large ticket sales, if that was the question, I think, Soma, you were asking me. that is itself a world by itself. You know, I always ask, colleagues in the business, how many 5 carats did you sell? How many 10 carats did you sell in last 1 year? And I tell you, we are selling such a minuscule amount because either it's going underground, so therefore the big trend that is happening is a very solid balance sheet. If you're financially not sound, I think the companies, the jewelers will go through stress. If the compliance levels are not good, I think there's going to be stress. Disclosures are becoming very, very important. Even for the high value client or somebody who's buying 10,000 rupee client, I think they're wanting to know what is the product they're getting in their hand. Therefore, the entire, and you know what's happening to our government. The government is very hardly pressing on the pedal towards cleansing the industry. And they know the industry, not only us, I mean, that's also true of the steel industry, the textile industry, every industry. But we believe that we are facing the brunt, but we are actually not. The whole country is facing the brunt of challenge thrown by the governments on this country. And I think there couldn't be a better country in the world. So therefore, I'm saying there's a huge potential for high value transactions, there's a huge potential for small value transactions and everything in between. So I don't think anybody can fail unless they themselves go ahead and make some mistakes. Otherwise, there's a chance of everybody successful. So it's basically fitness, the fittest going forward. So to me, I believe that these are opportunities that we have in this country, and everybody in this room are experiencing that, except that there needs to be a faith in themselves in order to say, look, I can make a success out of my life, my business, and etc.
What I was really trying to understand here is, how is the consumption behavior? What are the expectations of a buyer, a young buyer? Post-COVID, there has been a lot of awareness, a lot of talk about sustainability, and there are different cohorts in the market, So earlier, if there was somebody who was more concerned about sustainability, that was maybe one cohort. But today, there are many such cohorts. So how are you seeing that impacting luxury? And should we be concerned about these emerging trends? And does it really pertain to luxury as a segment? Or because we're in the business of precious jewelry, it should be everybody's concern regardless of the value of the jewelry?
It's just getting more sharper. That means every consumer, when they are at the age of 18, 20, 12, 14, I don't know, at any age, they are really looking for absolute declarations. They will patronize anyone who appear to be transparent. So it doesn't matter. There is no disinterest in a diamond. There is no disinterest in a lab grown. There is no disinterest in gold or silver. There is no disinterest. It's only the kind of interest that they have is changing. Meaning, earlier, I had no choice. What you gave me, I took. Okay? That was the attitude of the consumer. But today, I don't think they are saying whatever you give is okay. I think they're demanding that you deliver in the right way. The consumers have not become different, but they become more demanding, and they want transparency. So at one point of time, if you remember, if you look at all the historical books, even Cartier would say, the richest guy would, be the most difficult guy, and the richest guy will not pay. Whereas everybody else will pay. But in India, I beg to differ. I think the richest guy will pay, and everybody will pay. And I must tell you, Malia never defaulted on us. Not even 1 rupee. So what I'm trying to say is that nobody defaults unless they are into a very bad cycle by themselves, and I think we know who they are.
Right.
They're very visible. They're in the press. The government is after them, so that we know. So you don't play the fool with such people. So luxury today, in my mind, is a decisive, distinctive, analysis of what that luxury is.
Right. Sure.
So, just to talk about what do the today's consumer want, I think what our experience is, and this applies particularly to the younger generation, all said and done, they are very, very demanding. And they want something different and better. Unless you have something to offer, they are not going to shop from you. So if we have to make the brand successful and people like us who have the national presence, I think two things which at least we are working on. One is that we want the ownership on the design. That we want to not only create the design, we want to keep the ownership of the design with us. Because that is what will make us offer something unique to our consumers.
That's the key differentiator.
That's a key offering. The second thing, and particularly it applies to the jewelry industry, is that though consumer wants something different, even the trendier, but still it has to have a regional relevance. A young consumer from deep south or deep north or deep east, yes, they are modern, they are trendier, but still some regional relevance, they would like to keep it. So I think as far as we are concerned, we are working on both, whereby we are creating the design studios currently at the regional level and maybe one level below, but ultimately aim is to create our own design centers across all the states,
So
because that is what it will be differentiate from others,
So basically localize as much as possible.
That's right.
Okay. Ajay, two questions for you here. Coming back to where we left. Number one is, Tanishq has changed the relationship that a woman would have with jewelry. So to say today, there is a symbolic value to what Tanishq signifies for her. So in that sense, okay, that is more about, breaking the social code, the regressive codes which apply to women. But moving forward, what are the key trends that you are seeing, which will really matter to the woman?
See, I think Sunil touched upon it. Design will continue to be a fundamental code in this category. So that the fact that the woman is already, streets ahead of the men is true. They already know what the true value of the jewelry sitting in the design, not just in the material value. But having said that, I want to actually, before I come to the trends, I want to touch upon what Vinod said. And see, on the one side, we talk about consumers demanding sustainability, transparency, honesty, and authenticity. I think that's one piece which, post-COVID, I think that will see a greater acceleration, because more and more, and I'm not referring to the jewelry market, we were doing this study across consumer cohorts and across different industries, and what came through was the customer is seeking authenticity. It's not just the young, the old, the male, the female, it doesn't matter. I think every customer is today seeking authenticity and wants the brand to truly walk the talk. Don't tell me how good you are. Tell me what are you doing. Tell me what is it that is true about you. Not just talk. Having labels and certifications, I think a lot of customers have a lot of doubt on what is happening. So they want to really know what's there. But more than that, I think, as brands, as players, as industry partners, etc., I think we must do what is right. I personally, when I have visited many of the manufacturing units across the country, many vendor partners, many manufacturing centers and clusters, it pains me to see such beautiful works of art which we saw, some of which we've seen outside, and the kind of products that come out. That beauty is coming from what kind of situations in which the karigar works.
Absolutely.
They don't, the polluting atmosphere, the cramped seating, and I think as jewelers, as retailers, and sometimes as manufacturers as well, we tend to turn a blind eye towards those things. I think it's high time that as an industry we realize where value is being created. We talk about design, Sure, there is design studio, but really it is the karigari. Finally, we will all accept that the craftsmanship and the design that go hand in hand to create this beautiful charm and beautiful dream that the woman falls in love with, you know, notwithstanding the men. But having said that, it's high time that we as an industry and as a collective decide that we will operate in a certain manner which really is, you know, giving, otherwise where will these karigars go? I mean, why will the next generation come in? If they are going to be out of work after the age of 40 because they can't continue, they have been permanently, you know, utilized in many ways. How will this continue? Today when I visited Jaipur and Ahmedabad and many of these places, they were saying that nahi aa raha hai. Fresh karigars are not willing to come in. It is easier to get minimum wages in as a driver, as a security guy, as somewhere else. So to me, that is one piece. The second piece is what again Vinod touched upon, which is there is a clear push from the government towards cleaning up our act as an industry. And I think whether it is the whole, the gold ecosystem, and Som Sundaram is here and he's part of some major committees, and all the stuff happening across the country, or even whether it is hallmarking.
Now we know that Som is behind all this.
Sorry?
Now we know Som is behind all this.
You can catch him after this panel. No, but I'm just saying that whether it is the government's push towards gold or towards hallmarking or towards initially GST, and then I think the direction is very clear. Whatever we do, we can resist, we can, we can try to, let's say, put out protests, we can do strikes. But frankly, I think it is a question of, okay, abhi nahi, 3 mahine baad kar lenge. I think the government is very, very clear what it's trying to do.
So Ajay,
So as an industry, it's high time we accept this.
I agree with you, and especially in an audience like this, what we might want is a push one side from the businesses. We all have to push the cleaning up of Zaveri Bazaar, or in Bangalore you have Gundopan Street and all the various streets, that Avenue Road and the BV Kayenga Road, and where there is very, very filthy manner of manufacturing. On the other hand, if all of us also who are dealing in these products were also to push back and say, boss, I want to come and see your place. If all of us were to go and take the time out of your workplace and say, look, I want to go and see where you're manufacturing your goods, and you will see the truth come out, and slowly, we are not going there to inspect and to discourage and to disconnect, but we're going, if we were to go there to say, look, can I help you? Can we fund something? Can we put in better lighting? Can we put in better water treatment, or, how it goes out, and acids and all that? I think there's going to be a huge cleanup across the country, because whether it's Ahmedabad, whether it is Mumbai, Coimbatore, anywhere, except for organized production units, like Mr. Srinivasan over here, and many other very good manufacturing units, but the bulk of the manufacturing units, this is a trend that we must start. As much as we want a trend to come from the consumer, what are we as an industry doing to change that? What's our trend? Now, we cannot only expect a few people in the country to change. We have to make everybody, everybody, who even if they were having, like you said earlier, 3,000 customers, but they need to go and say, look, I want to know where is the production. And the transparency is not only from the government side and the consumer side, but the transparency goes back to the production side as well. So we need to know, where is your rubies coming from? Where is your coral coming from? What is the duty paid? I mean, these are things that we need to ask and get them put on the bill and transparently.
So I'm not speaking for the manufacturers, but truth be told, if I were to speak to any manufacturer, most of them would say that, is the retailer willing to pay the price that I demand? So it's one thing to say that, yes, we will push for a cleaner supply chain, we want them to rise up to become more ethical, have better hygiene factors, and be overall more humane in their approach of how they treat their workers. have more, better working conditions, all of that. Number one, are we willing to pay a price for that? That's number one. Two, given the history of discounting in the industry and the rampant, discounts that every jeweler gives to undercut his competition, how do we correct that situation? Because we are all undercutting each other on making charge. Because there is no play on gold, especially after mandatory hallmarking. So from that standpoint, as a collective, can we build a stronger narrative for the industry? Because there is a heightened sentiment around, there is this vocal for local, there is so much more appreciation of handcrafted items, especially given the COVID sentiment. Can the industry, and this is maybe something WGC can also ponder on, collectively as an industry, can we push for a better narrative where we show the working conditions, where we raise more empathy from the consumers and the entire pipeline?
Yes. Even today, there are very good production units which are doing very ethical, good work. And they are getting their price. It's not that they're undergoing a loss. They are becoming more profitable. So we need to realize that good makes profit, bad reduces profit. I think that's very, very clear. In the industry, already the good players are doing better, all of them.
There are individual stories, but I'm saying as a collective. If you talk to any jeweler, he will tell you the struggles of getting the making charge that he feels he deserves. That's on one side, and the story remains pretty much the same if you talk to a manufacturer.
But the honest fact of it is, everybody is doing well. So it's a question of, sometimes we have a habit of saying, how is business not good? But actually, business is not bad. And people who are doing better business and better quality of work environments are doing better. They are sleeping better. They are honestly being more happier. So happiness quotient has increased tremendously within the industry of those who have become very, very, transparent. And today I don't have anybody telling me, I can't tell you where I produce the goods. They're saying, yes, come and see me. I want you to come. I want you to look inside my place. Tell me where I can improve myself.
So that push has to go from the retailer because he has to bear the cost of that improvement.
Collectively, all of us.
If I add to that, this program, we'll have to become more responsible as players. And while some of our colleagues know here, but as a program over the last 2 years or 3 years now, I think Tanishq has pushed on the responsible sourcing and supply chain and supplier engagement protocol. Both in terms of the source of the material, whether it's diamonds, where are they coming from and where is the gold coming from, as well as the manufacturing process, which Vinod was talking about. And there is a structured way to do it. It is about people, about place, about process, it's about planet. We have seen that many which suppliers who are in the cottage level have moved to basic and then they are moving to standard. Sure, world class may be a next level, but there is a migration and we can see it happen. It requires consistent effort. And there is a cost to doing it. Yes, there is a cost to doing it. There is a difference in quality that you get. There is a difference in the output that you get. And we don't know. We think it is a very good method to do ahead. But frankly, we are a drop in the ocean of the collective. And to me, the question is, why wait till the customer pushes you? Why wait till the government pushes you or some other stakeholder like Human Rights Watch or ESG or whatever else is going on? Because by the time they start pushing you, the karmic damage has been done.
Correct.
We are doomed. So better do it on our own voluntarily so that we don't accumulate the negative baggage.
And I think that's more true than ever given the situation that we are in. There is a lot more discussion around well-being of workers and how brands are taking care of them. And all of this was already building before COVID, but I think it's kind of accelerated.
So I like what he said. One is to wait and see what trends the market and consumer. Sure, I mean, maybe that's the question you had asked and I diverted it there. But I think it's important that we also set some trends. When it comes to design, we set fantastic trends. We lead the customer. The customer not saying, I wanted this design. She falls in love what you have created. So the narrative you lead with is also where the reality comes. So can we lead with this narrative and create this trend which is going to benefit all of us? Because no industry can survive and thrive if the people who make our beautiful jewelry don't thrive.
Absolutely. We need
That's the
talent
question.
to come
It's a
back.
question of time.
Yeah, we need talent to come back, and I think COVID again has proved that a lot of this talent we have lost over the last 18 months. I
I may suggest in this context that our human resource structure in our organizations have to undergo a change. It's not just we have somebody in heading marketing and HR and sales and design and quality and all that. I think there needs to be also somebody in charge of compliance, somebody in charge of ethics, somebody in charge of, who are actually not doing the normal work, but they're going and doing these kind of work. Go and inspect production centers and see, let that person be only for that sake. Because, an average jeweler who's an average size would have at least 30 vendors with them. Now imagine going and inspecting 30 vendors right through the year, seeing whether everything is being done there in the right way. There's another thing that I'm seeing is the talent is changing. At one point of time, if you remember, there were only goldsmiths or silversmiths, and at one point of time, there were only designers. But what's the next happening? I'm seeing designers would go out of jobs. Okay, you might ask me why would they go out of jobs? Because they will be taken over by CAD operators. Designers would need to add greater skills. If they're coming out of NIFT, but if they don't know CAD, they're unfit in today's world. Because manufacturing capabilities with 3D manufacturing, 3D printing, you can't do it on a hand-drawn sketch anymore. You need CAD expertise. Now imagine today the number of designers in an organization, a ratio to the total number of designers and CAD operators have undergone a change. What used to be 20%, 10% of CAD operators have now become 60% CAD operators, 40% designers. So these kind of, we have to see these trends happening right in front of our eyes. If we don't climb up, if we are not, I think your title of this was agility. That means we have to be agile. We have to move the scale. Just because somebody is a great designer, which is very good, but if the person does not have CAD skills, or if you cannot employ CAD operators, and that too CAD is quite a tough task.
Right.
You need expertise in CAD. So if you can get that, then your product is far superior.
Sure. Ajay, coming back to you. So one question that I asked was on the other trends that you're seeing coming. That's more on the side of communication, which could also impact how you do business with women. The other was, when I was talking to Vinod, we talked about how the luxury market is behaving. And on that, I picked up from a couple of comments that you have given to media. One that 2021, there was 15% growth in Zoya, which is phenomenal. And the first quarter of this year, you have clocked a whopping 354%. So I'm guessing the base is not so big, which is okay. But by itself, I think it's a massive indicator of the appetite for aspirational and luxury jewelry, which is what even you were saying about studded jewelry. So I want to hear it from you. And to add to what I said, a lot of this demand, as per his public statement, is from the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, and much of it is also driven by online. It's a mix. So I need to know more on that.
No, so you're right. Last year, Zoya clocked in a large growth. Not a large, a 15% growth over the previous year, but that's no big deal because the base was very small. This year, it continues to show that growth. Even if you knock off the first quarter base effect and I look at what has happened post unlock after wave 2, I think that is to do with the life stage of the brand. The brand is still at an early life stage in terms of its base. So that's one. Second, I think there has been a lot of share of wallet gain. We were talking about it, over coffee while the previous sessions were going on. Clearly, jewelry has seen the benefit of share of wallet because of other discretionary spends having come down. Third, I think, and I think he touched upon it in terms of, celebrate the moment. I think you talked about it, Sunil. I think there is a here and now to people's lives, and it's linked to a larger trend. Kal kisne dekha? Who has seen what is going to happen tomorrow or the next wave or whatever? Make the best of now. And I'm sure all of us, in some ways, many of us in the crowd are also seeing customers come and celebrate small moments, small milestones. I think the fact that we are alive and we live to tell the tale on another day is also very important. So we also have seen that in the case of Zoya. So many of the Zoya customers were hesitant to step out of their homes. But if we are willing to go to their home, they are willing to buy. If we are willing to, adapt our business model to their... So Bombay, where we have 2 of our stores, actually was very badly hit. Despite that, and therefore dependence on Bombay was very high. Despite that, we could see a growth. Not because the customer came to the store, but because we went to their homes. So that's another important trend that we are seeing, that customer is demanding. You talked about it, Vinod, in terms of even, I think they're seeking the best that you can. You can give me service, you can give me remote shopping, you can give me digital payment, contactless, you can make it safe. I don't have to step out of my home. And the person whom you send to my home is double vaccinated with, 14 days.
So convenience is the new currency for retailers.
Convenience is very critical. And the other piece that I can pick out from what we see, tier 2, tier 3, yes, we always see demand because when we do exhibitions. But what we did see is because you're offering a digital offering and a remote shopping, a lot of, let's say, trapped demand which was otherwise not getting a chance to kind of buy a Zoya, from a Bilaspur to a Indore to a Madurai to a Guntur or wherever you can say, there were a lot of inquiries from there online, and they are saying, okay, now we can't send jewelry all the way there, but we were able to bring them pretty close to kind of making the shortlist, and maybe if they are visiting next or whenever we do our exhibition next. So we see there's a lot of interest, and maybe people from the cities have gone off to their hometowns and they are, I don't know. But the fact is that there is demand in tier 2, tier 3 towns.
These are all new customer acquisitions?
And we see a lot of new customers. Yeah, we see a lot of new. In fact, if I look at Tanishq, which is the much larger base, pretty much our new customer contribution has jumped to 45% in the current year. Of course, even if you discount the expansion piece, even for an existing store, it is as high as 30%. So there are new customers coming into the category.
Is that, you think, because of this digital ubiquity that is becoming a norm? Because
not necessarily,
brands
Soma.
are everywhere and it's so easy to switch between brands because...
Not necessary. No? I think digital is a small contributor, but there is, I think...
I'm not discounting the larger pull of the brand, but I'm saying, could this be one of the tipping factors?
It is one. I mean, the fact that you're able to complete your complete transaction sitting in the comfort of your home certainly is a convenience factor. But I think at a broader level, the younger customer is also buying jewelry. And this worry that we had, the risk of young people won't like gold and they're not interested, I don't think it's true. Otherwise, you wouldn't see the flourishing of brands like CaratLane, Mia, Melora is another player from Bangalore, and so many other, and everybody is launched for the younger customer. I think Candere is there, and Zoll from, name it, any player. Right. I think these guys are also talking about targeting a younger. Reliance was telling me how they are targeting a younger customer in their shop-in-shops. So I think there is a genuine interest in the category, which, and this young customer tomorrow after 10, 15 years is going to be that demanding customer who talked about.
10, 15, maybe
5 years or 10 years
too long
down the
horizon.
line. Maybe 5.
Correct.
But, in terms of the real high
it's
value.
shaping up,
Yeah, so I think that's important.
Correct. Deepu, would you like to talk us through the gift, ready gift, on that note, which you said that young customers are, embracing the category. more than probably we realize. So what is your experience of how are the young behaving when you give them ready to gift boxes?
Yeah, so yes, of course. The ready-to-gift boxes, with a specific price point and a specific MRP has done very well for us because it's something that they don't have to spend too much time in trying to go and choose. We give a good product, we advertise it properly, and we give it at a good price. And for them, it's just, and on that specific occasion of, maybe it's Karwa Chauth, or if it's Raksha Bandhan or whatever, these specific volume drivers do very well in that, because consumers do not want to really spend a lot of time. They prefer being in the safety of their own home, and they see something that will do as a gift for a loved one, and this type of product and strategy really works well. So it's something just people are buying, impulse purchase. So
when we create this box, which has innovative diamond-studded jewelry, and you fix the price, in a way, are you building some sense of urgency in them to pick it up? And,
Absolutely. So, we say Karwa Chauth special, for 3 days only, 1 week only. And people they say, okay, I have to buy some jewelry, might as well just go and buy something which is already ready and packed and everything ready for me, and I can just walk out.
So that's a big success model for Aura.
Yeah.
I mean, you have done these boxes for Valentine, for Diwali, and they range from 9,999 anywhere till about 1 lakh.
Correct.
All right. So you gave some numbers in terms of how many you sold. Those were interesting.
In a 40-store chain, at that time 40 stores, we sold 800, 900 necklaces of 1 lakh. So it's in a short period of time. So it was pretty interesting strategy to go into.
You also have something called Aura Crown Star. So Zoya has also filed for a design patent, right? So how important is it for a luxury brand? And Mr. Hegde, you could also take that, because they have an Aura Crown Star. So is it really important for a luxury brand to have these brand identifiers to create a differentiator in the market?
When it comes to design patent and copyright, actually it's a copyright. So we've also got about quite a few copyrights, but it's very expensive to maintain copyrights. A little twist, in India, the copyright protection is not very strong. And if you have to go behind somebody and sue them and send them a legal notice, it's quite a task. Yeah. For example, we've got copyrights on a variety of things. Terminologies, we have copyrights. For example, we started something called rate protection plans somewhere in 92 or 96. Now, rate protection plan was something that we coined, but now it's become industry lingo. So sometimes to protect that, now, one is to pick up the phone and call your friend across in the industry and say, guys, don't copy something. But sometimes some people listen, some people don't. But never say no to copywriting and patenting, because and put it in print there, saying that this design is copyrighted, whether it's on social media, whether it's in your website, whether it's in your documents. Even if you are, giving a design to a customer, say there, copying prohibited, it's a design of Krishna Chetty, whatever.
Copyright is good. My question was more on brand identifiers. So Crown Star is more of a brand identifier than a copyright that you are talking about. So is that becoming important? Is that a trend?
Are you saying a design connection between the brand and the design
no, it
style?
builds a sense of distinction in the brand and kind of captures the mind share of the customer in a very different way, in a very unique way, in fact. The brand looks as more like an innovator in the space. So there are a lot of ramifications of, communicating that this is unique to your brand.
I'd like them to say, and then I will say something.
Sure. Because copyright is an impossible task. Fashion industry is testimony to that. So,
but you can protect.
Yeah.
And believe me, it is necessary to protect design.
We are in the business of trading. As a jewelry industry,
No, if you're trading-
so unless we own the design, and the fact that we are at IIGS signifies that as an industry, we are still in the business of
Yes.
trading. To build a brand, the first thing probably a brand needs to do is build its own design identity and
course.
then talk about design patenting.
You can
And
only
we are
patent
far
a-
off from that,
You can only patent a copyright your own. I can't patent and
No,
copyright.
I'm just saying, as, as a proposition, I'm saying we are far from it, given, the environment, the ecosystem that we work in. I mean,
But
just
there
to put
are
a perspective
several
on
designs
that.
that I see in social media by Indian companies, jewelers across India. They're doing some very interesting concepts.
Yes,
Now, if they leave it like that, it'll get copied. But if each of these people who created that design were to copyright it and patent it or copyright it, patent is for an invention, copyright is for a design.
Right.
So if you copyright it, your chance of it being copied is very low. But still somebody can copy it, twist something here, and it can. But doesn't mean that you should protect it.
possibly, yeah.
No, do you want to go? You wanted to share something?
Yeah, so a brand identifier is very important for us. I mean, all of us are in the sea of the same 18K gold or 22K gold and 18K diamonds jewelry. But a brand identifier is very important for survival, I would say, for any organization. And when you can create, and when you can create, maybe it's the best design, and if you take the Cartier Love bracelet, it's probably one of the biggest single SKUs that that is in the industry worldwide. So if you can create those identifiers, if it's that love bracelet, or for us, our Aura Crown Star, which is India's 73 facet, most brilliant diamond, people latch on to that. And this is something that you can use as part of your arsenal to continue with your strategy.
Sure. Mr. Archer, your comments on that?
I think just two thoughts. One, every brand, especially at the higher end, needs to have a certain clear design marker. I think you were referring to the product identity and the brand identity being kind of linked. And there I think between copywriting or patenting, it will help if we are able to. But in India, it's very difficult to protect. I mean, we've been struggling with this in watches, leave aside jewelry, for years. One small change here and there, you change the seconds hand and the design. So it's very difficult to protect. But having said that, I would say that it is useful if a brand, we are operating as retailers and therefore as a retail brand. But in the mind of the customer, we are also we are a product brand. So if we are able to, in a way, create a design language which gets associated with that brand, and I think Zoya has done that very sharply. Mia is doing it in a different manner, and Tanishq, through its collection-led strategy, has been doing it. Maybe in the core products, there is not so much you can do, but in the collections that we can. So I think a strong design language is a very strong arsenal. I would tend to agree with him. So copyright or otherwise, I think it's useful to do it for any brand.
I think we are really late, so I will take everybody's last word on the future of the jewelry retail industry and what are the silver linings, what are the commercial opportunities which are presented in the new market scenario. Mr. Hegrev, starting with you.
Crystal ball gazing. Well, crystal ball gazing, I am looking probably a very robust, very nice, creative industry. Lot of new talent will be dictating the future of design in our country. And I think I'm looking at a very different workforce in our organizations. Many of the old will give way. There's a new blood coming in. And it will be very agile. I mean, agile meaning it'll be changing. It's like a continuously flowing river in every organization. So it needs, we need to have a management ability to manage the day-to-day, month by month, quarter by quarter change. Now, how that changes, what needs to be kept, how to monitor them. I mean, I was speaking with our IT head here who said it's a big data. You have data, but you don't know how to translate it into deliverables. You don't know how to analyze that data. There's data with all our software and technology, all the data is available. How do we monetize that data? So these are things that are going to be challenging. Those who create these outcomes, they might be great winners.
So basically, it's going to get tougher to run a jewelry business because you not only have to get data, first of all, you have to analyze and then maybe have the right application for it.
Yeah,
So it's not going to be easy running a jewelry business.
Yeah,
the way we did
conventional
earlier.
wisdom may not be adequate. You need new talent and new analysts in the business. So therefore, you need to create that space and the budgets for human resource.
It's quite an ask from the jewelry industry, maybe given the pace of change that we have witnessed in the past. But yeah, I guess agile transformation is what we need to move towards. Mr. Mehta?
So I was thinking about what is agile leadership and what you were when we were talking earlier. Agile leadership, I mean, for me, first of all, let me just say, the industry I think is going to grow. It's a rising tide. All of us will benefit from it. India is, wealth creation is happening over here. And all of us will benefit from this in various degrees. But what I was thinking about when the topic was agile leadership is to have the SOPs like the giants over here, but have a mindset of being a startup. So if you can marry these two, I think that is what agile leadership is all about.
So I think, first of all, very difficult to crystal gaze in today's world when so many disruptions are happening so frequently. Two things I would say. One, at least as far as I am and Reliance is concerned, we are very, very optimistic in terms of the industry, the future of industry. Whatever may happen, there can always be disruption, there can always be, people can evolve in terms of metal, in terms of combination, in terms of design, in terms of value for offering. But I think at the end of the day, we are Indians and we will remain Indians. Be it last generation, this generation, next generation. Depending on how it evolves, people may adapt, but I think our affinity towards the precious metals will continue to remain. And as I said, people like me can come and say that maybe the silver is a new precious metal one should seriously look at. Somebody else will come, he will talk on something else. But I think let us accept the fact that jewelry as an industry has a very good future in the coming years, decades and generations. That's number one. I think the second thing which we are more or less, I think all of us agree, one thing is that there will definitely be disruptions in the way people shop. And I think what is going to happen is that all brands have to become omni-channel presence. I think lot of changes will happen, are happening, and will continue to happen. From online to offline, offline to online. You select the piece on the net and go and pick up the piece from the store. You buy at one store, you go to the one store, have a look at what collections are available in the different branches of that brands. A lot of changes are going to happen in the near future, I think. And that is what we will witness.
So yeah, brands need to be omni-channel, omnipresent, unified experience. I think those are going to become hygiene factors for us to survive. Mr. Chawla?
I think the panelists have shared a couple of good things. So design and digital, and including the Omni piece. In addition to that, India as a country, if I were to look at it, has got over 1,200 towns where jewelry can be a significant business. And we are present only in about 220 odd towns. And there are jewelers across thousands and thousands of towns in the country. So I think the opportunity is massive, huge. And also, as you see the buying power of customers, sure, we've lost a few million jobs in the last year. I'm sure it'll get covered up. It's a matter of time. But the several millions that are coming into the discretionary earning and spending space, it's a massive opportunity for everybody. There is no need to fight it out and try to take each other's share. You know, you were referring to that. Everybody can, I think even Vinod referred to it, everybody can do well. So that's the big headline I would like to leave behind. Having said that, I think for the customer to see value in the brand, besides the design and digital, I would go back to saying, can you be an authentic brand? You may be a standalone jeweler in a particular town, but can you be true to who you are and walk the talk on that front? Whatever you stand for, whatever design language you may stand for, whatever practices you may stand for, or whatever customer experience that we are able to give. And I think, we spoke about this in another conversation, how it is not only the chains which have to grow. I think everybody can grow, because actually for the independent jeweler to serve his or her customer base in their unique manner is even better. So if you can be authentic to who you are and you can do these other pieces, I think the opportunity is massive. So you don't need to worry about discounting and making charges, but delight the customer, and everybody benefits. Customer is anyway happy, and everybody in the value chain, right up to the karigar and the diamond manufacturer, everybody is happy. So the opportunity is massive.
So, does anyone in the audience want to ask anything? No questions?
I thought you were going to say, when can these guys get off and we have some fun on the fashion show?
Okay. With that, we'll conclude the discussion. But yes, I completely agree with all the panelists. The consumption story of India is true. Nobody can deny us the growth. The $5 trillion dream may have got pushed farther by 4 to 5 years. Who knows? Maybe a little shorter or a little longer. But I don't think anybody can deny us that growth. And what Ajay talked about, there is a huge shift happening across consumption classes. And that's the sign of any developing economy. And if we read between the lines, there will be preferences and increased proclivity for brands, which are transparent, which stand by their ethics, which walk the talk. So, on that note, let's start the celebrations.
Wow. Many thanks to our distinguished panelists. And Ms. Shoma, we'd like to present a token of love, a memento, to all our distinguished panelists. I'm going to request you all to come ahead of the table so that we have good photo ops. Just from that perspective. Yes, Ms. Shoma, to kindly present the mementos. Well, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, one last time, may we all put our hands together for Mr. Ajoy Chawlaji, the CEO, Jewelry Division, Titan Company Limited. Please step forward, dear sir. Let's continue. The roar of applauses from Mr. Sunil Nayak, CEO, Reliance Jewels. Thank you very much, dear sir. Mr. Deepu Mehta, Managing Director, Aura Fine Jewelry. Thank you very much, sir. And Mr. Vinod Hayagriv, Managing Director, C. Krishna Shetty Group. Sir, thank you for the applause. I love that. And you gave a lot of gifts as well, presents to everyone. So thank you for making it special. So for a group photo op, Shoma ma'am, for all of you for a group photo op, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we would love to thank our presenting partner, World Gold Council, supported by SGL, Emerald Jewels, and Suntech Global Business Solutions. The good news is here, yes, cocktails are being served now, ladies and gentlemen. Please do remember to visit our partners' booths, the retail service providers' booths, and the bridal trendsetters' rooms. And we shall begin the bridal trendsetters event in the next few minutes from now. Samit sir, how many minutes do we have?